So today is going to be activity maintenance, and we have got a lot to kind of walk through. And as we've seen before, all of these other activities that involve having to do a search and to register for the activities. But what's really behind the setting up of these activities? Well, that's what we're looking at today, and we're going to go ahead and switch over and look at the presentation here. Okay. So again, today is Introduction to Activity Maintenance. Again, this is the Zoom meeting info. If you have anybody that'd like to get on the call a little later, this is the information that you can give. You can get it on audio, video, or a combination of both. And here's the phone number and the ID number. All of our presentations are stored right now, all up to date at the YouTube channel, which has all of the training for all 1 through 7 up to this point. As a courtesy, if everyone could, just make sure you're staying muted while we're doing the presentation. It is being recorded, so we will have ability to have staff to look at this at a future date, especially coming up here that we might be getting ActiveNET really rolling. At the end, please hold all those questions that you may have for this one until the end. We will then have a Q&A session, and when you do see the Q&A, we will then know that the presentation is at the completion. All right, so let's get into today. So today's overview, we are going to search for an activity, and again, we will be in the Administration tab. So again, in the banner tab. So again, this is the one on the far right-hand side of the screen, as we see right up here. So Administration, we're going to be right in there. Now, we're going to look at how we're going to edit these activities. Now, we registered a few of them before as like a customer. Now we're going to see how we set them up. So we'll look at the list, and then we're going to look at all the different functions that involve as far as an activity. We're going to look at activity name and its details, the financial information, and then along with that, we will also have the other actions that have couple other capabilities that will allow you to do more with that activity. So you may remember back before, the Administration tab has a bunch of different settings. This is kind of the full menu of everything that's in front of you. And again, when we got there, just to show you perspective on the system, when you get on here to Administration, you can click on Administration, and again, it brings you to this main menu of all the different choices between the customer information, the registration for activities, memberships, facilities, and then as well as point of sale. And then when we get down to doing actual transactions, we will also have our financial reports that you'll be able to run the different things and add coupons and things. So again, this is kind of your home base when it comes to the administrative side of ActiveNET. But again, this is where we'll begin today. And again, we will be dealing again with the activities section, which is involving all of our editing of our programs. When you get on there, you're going to be able to see, when you get on trying to find an activity, you're going to come to this screen to the search. It looks very familiar. Now, a lot of these things will be where you can find whatever activity you want. And if you remember right, we also have the little asterisks. The asterisk means you can search all activities all across the statuses. So again, you can look down here at the bottom. You could search all sites, or you can go to a specific site. And right now, because we're in the trainer and we're not live yet, we have all of our stuff is considered tentative. However, here in a little bit, I will show you an open. We're going to kind of go through the slides first, and then we're going to go through the live trainer to see how all that kind of fits together. So you'll do the search. You'll come to this screen. So on any activity, you'll see this all the time. This is kind of the general screen you'll see when it comes to making any changes. So first, we're going to talk. We have the names and details and financial. Again, like how we talked about as far as our breakdown today, these headings: name and details, the financial information, and then mostly the actions. Again, dealing with waitlist and being able to add people from a waitlist. Those are where all those come into play. So we opened up activity. We just used one for kettlebell, and again, just to show you some of the different, all the different types of things you see when you go and edit. Now, this one is just your general information, and you're going to have your name of your program where you put your name of everything in there. The type of activity, which will be an activity, that's the main one that we work with. We will have different seasons. Now, that everything will be, you'll have like kind of what we have with Life is Grand. We will have sections of months that will be constituting a season. So we'll work on that soon. It'll probably be right on the Life is Grant schedule when we work on that. Then you'll also have the statuses of what you will have. Everything should be, if you're ready to register for stuff, it should be in the open status. Currently, a lot of stuff is in tentative because it's not been finalized yet. So you'll have open. If you see that, that's a good thing. We've broken down ActiveNET into several different departments or different sections of the system, and one of them, in this case, is fitness programs. Now, all across the board, we've got fitness programs. Now, depending on where those fitness programs are going to be and how you want to categorize them, that's where you'll be able to search in here. And these settings, you'll want to make sure you get the closest category for the program they're offering. In this case, we have the 50-plus crowd, so our category is 50-plus. And then you're going to see the catalog description. Now, this is really important. You want to make sure, now, if any program is decided to be shown online, you're going to want to make sure you have a good description in here, because if it is online, everybody will see that. So you want to have a nice, concise description, but you also want it to be presentable, not just a few little steps. In this case, we're not doing anything online, but I know some of y'all will. So be cautious whenever you put a description in here that you make it looks nice, not run-on sentences, and it's also presentable and short and sweet. Those are really important, but know that's where your description will show up for your program. General information. This is, again, your first section you'll see. Then we'll go into the meeting dates and times. Now, site-specific stuff, you will want to pick your location. And again, this is where, for the Summit program, this is where that comes in. You also can put in another description of the location, whether it's like an exercise room or if it was the gym or something. Then you can put those, you can label that in there. So again, this is where you can put another description of where it's going to be. Then you have patterns. Now this is, again, what I've learned in ActiveNET all the way through this point. It's important to know that when you do set a program up, when we originally started and we set up all of our facilities or rooms at each of the locations, this part is the most crucial. If you have a room that you want that to be in, this is the section where you need to put that together, where it says add facility. Now, you don't have to really, unless you have a pattern of constant, if you have a constant program that's going to meet certain times, you'll want to kind of put together like a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at these certain times. This is where you can do that. But very important, though, you do want to make sure that you get the room that you want. And this, again, is add facility. You'll be able to, if you hit that, it will list every single facility if it is the Summit, it'll just list all Summit facilities or rooms, and you'll be able to select that and add that into your box. When that is important, I've found that setting up a template for a constant, for instance, trips in our case is going to be something we have a lot of. So I've set up a actual program template that'll have a lot of this stuff set already, and then you'll be able to copy that into a new program. So again, copying is a real big thing in ActiveNET. If you set up one thing, you can then copy it to another, and then those same settings will stay with that program once you save it. Very, very thing just to keep in mind when you set up your programs. But you can add the rooms to the place here. You can put a notes on here if there's any particular meeting schedule or something of when they're going to have the class. Those kind of things are important there. And then if you have a pattern, you can actually set the dates here for how long, what's the duration and frequency of those programs are going to be. So you'll see that here on the first date, last date, and then how often they're going to be meeting during the week. And again, you can set up the patterns as well down here with days of the week. You can continue to add additional patterns there as well. Let me switch over to the live just to kind of show you up to speed where we're at. So again, we went in here to an activities. We then will look up a program. And I'm just going to do one. We don't have to be necessarily the kettlebell. There we go. I'm going to pick one, Epic, just our basics. We just use this one for example. Remember, like we saw, we come back over here and we see that we have names and details, the financial and action. So those are important things you'll remember. We're in the change details right now. So we're looking at the actual layout, the configuration of this program. So now, very, very similar to what we saw. Again, we have the name of the program. We also have our seasons. Again, right now it's considered open in the trainer, so we could work on this and show an example. Then you have your actual description And if you do want to make sure you have offer it online, make sure you have a real nice, concise description that looks real nice when it shows online. And then think again about the wizard. Every one of these trainings we've had, it's been a process of step 1, step 2, step 3. Same principle here when it comes to setting up your program. All of these things are in basically chronological order in every one of them that you do. And again, this is kind of where we're at, though. We go through these and we have the setup, and that's where, and again, it continues on down as we go. But now we look at the participant. Now we're getting into a little bit more restrictive type stuff. Now, if you want to get age specific, if you want to do it, if it's gender specific, a lot of things are co-ed, but if it was going to be for a kids program or something, if it was just a girls program, you could select a different type of things there. Or in this case, there's also residency type. You can also choose it by member or non-member. So you can put those kind of restrictions on programs as well. But again, the restrictions is here where you can segment how your program's set up. And then you can put in, they also have grade things here, and then age calculation by date. You can put those things there. We also have introduced a little bit about alternative keys, and again, these are some things that we have available for additional fields for different types of things that you want to classify in ActiveNET. Again, if you wanted to get specific on it, if you had an alternative key that you want to specifically highlight for this program, you'll then want to add that into this box. So again, these are the restrictions on when you have participants try to register. If they don't meet the criteria, then there will be a restriction on the membership when you try to register. A little red line, like red text, like you've seen before, will come up. But again, participant information, we've kind of gone through those specifics. Now we talk about how many. So we have how many participants. That's our next section. So a lot of classes that we've done before, sometimes minimum of 5 participants is kind of what we look at for a class to make. Well, this is where you would put that in if you decide to put a minimum on a class. If not, just leave it blank like you have. And then you can have a max of how many students, where your maximum in human case is 20. So again, you have all of these blanks where you can fill those in. And again, if you want it, and if there was, I guess, a certain amount of registrants for a receipt for one transaction, you could set a limit there as well. You also have, when you get down to, if you offer it online, now this is where you can put a notice when the activity is now full. So you can, so if you're not using online, then you don't have to worry about that. And then you can actually put the text in here saying this program's full. If we do have any openings, contact this person, or we will, when we contact this number, we'll get with you. Things like that can be put in there. So again, your online side of it, you can put that as well in this blank. Now we get to enrollment. Now, if you're getting as far as dates and times, we have a lot of options here. ActiveNET gives you tons of things as far as when you want, if you want members, non-members to start on a particular program. As you see on the screen here, we can say the first time for people to register for this, on like here you get May 7th. I know that we'll have a delay on stuff, but for instance, you could set the date for this. Non-residents could have a later date if you wanted to. Members on the same date as the first day. You can, again, all our first folks for internet, if you do want to offer it later, you can save those dates. So you see, you can break it down in such a different way on certain dates. So you do have a lot of flexibility how you want to roll that program out. So again, this is on the enrollment dates and times section. And again, we go back in here, there's more notes when it comes down for online. You can then see, you can make some notes on this program that for staff members to use. This is most of the user notes here. You then, if you have online stuff that you want to include on here for this activity, this would be like a description online. You would be able to put information on here about that program in this online space. And then receipt notes, if you wanted to have, when it prints out a receipt at the end online, you could put some notes on here. And I believe this also applies too for the portion of when it comes to even paying in front of people. When you do a receipt at the end, this should print the same notes as well. It doesn't specifically say online in this one, so it should mean for this activity receipt notes you can add a little text to remind people things. Then we also have online withdrawals and transfers. Now, you remember back when we did the memberships and we showed transfers, and then we also did the activities last week and we did transfers. Well, again, this is where you can actually set the parameters on that. So again, you have online withdrawal and transfers. You can use what ActiveNET already has as default, and you can leave that alone. Or you could override it with your own settings and say, I want this to allow withdrawal only so many days after this program begins or before it starts. So you can, again, you can put those parameters in there. You don't have to if you don't want to, but again, those things are there, so you can keep ActiveNET settings the way they are, or you can override them. So again, this is where your online withdrawal and transfer will happen. Now we get down to options. And let me go back here to kind of get for our visual. I want to show you where we are. So we talked about originally, we had the beginning with the general information. We then went into the financial part of it, which a lot of these things are already using the default settings of ActiveNET. There's those meeting dates and times, and because this was an EPIC program and it comes up with the EPIC, you could put a description in there if you like. Here's your room again, the facilities, all the ones that we put into ActiveNET. You pick an actual room where that place is going to be held. And that's where you put in add facility, and then it will attach it to it. Event notes as well. Then here we get down to our participant restrictions, if whether it's you have resident, non-resident, or we can do it male-female. A lot of those are, again, and then if you wanted a minimum age for a particular program, again, you put your parameters in there and restrictions. So whenever if somebody that wasn't meeting those registered, it's going to come up with a red flag or a red thing of text inside the system saying you can't halt here, this is not going to work. So that's where, again, the restrictions come into play. How many you're going to have in the program. Again, you can put your minimums and maximums, and then, again, a description as well if you're doing it online. And then here's your enrollment part. Again, this is the part that's going to be a pretty big adjustment from what we've had before. And you get, again, you have so much leeway on how you want to have that program. And if there is a certain registration date for, say, for instance, monthly programs, you want members to be able to register at a date before non-members, you could set those dates in there if you wanted to. Resident, non-resident, you have those options. So again, we have a lot more flexibility when it comes down to putting in when people register. And then there's your text notes. Again, it's just that wizard. You just keep on going down and you can see how all of that's coming together. And then we get down in here into the options section. And again, you have where you can either require or you don't require registration on the internet. You can make that change here. And if somebody needs to sign off on it, like a waiver, you can put those in, you can make that enabled for that program. And then again, if you talk about that waiver, you remember when we got into checking out, the little checkbox that got there at the end and says, hey, I need acknowledging that here's the deal with this particular program. If we have extra notes that people need to know about, then this is where you would want to check that before they check out. And then again, you have lots of different options here. You can use a complete, non-complete, incomplete kind of thing if you want to for the program. And then again, if it also involves like authorized pickups, if they're doing daycare type stuff, this is another option you can inquire in there. So again, a lot of the system has a lot of different options. By default, they will show and allow waitlist. This will be checked on a lot of when you put a program together. It defaults to allowing a waitlist to happen. That's going to be one of the greatest things that we've not had in so long. And again, whenever a program hits its limit, it automatically will go to a waitlist option. And then if you do have people that drop out from the main part, you can go to this waitlist, click on their name, and then from there you can add them into the program. So again, right when we get into those, we will have that ability where it should be a lot more organized. But again, you have a lot of these different options where you can set parameters for the particular program. Then again, you also have notifications. Now, ActiveNET already has default notifications for these particular programs. You can use the default options, and if you did, you could go in here and you can add something new. Or again, you can actually add additional withdrawal email notifications if you wanted to. Again, though, we'll go into that in a future training. However, that's, again, those are where you can set those there. And then you have the instructors and supervisors. So you can have, and a lot of our things you can do, let's see here. Okay, so before the little disconnection here, we were talking again, wrapping up on the options part of it. And again, in here you have a lot of different options to finish up. Now, we also got down here, we were talking about instructors. Now, you can, again, a lot of the programs in here, you can do instructors. If you don't have instructors officially assigned to that program, you can then set it up. With Summit, we've actually set up like one for just fitness in general, like a fitness team or an admin or programs. If you don't have a specific instructor or don't know, you can set those to that. And then you could also put a supervisor to it. So again, those options are right there when it comes to activity maintenance. And again, when you look at names and details on here, it's a subsection of everything that we have. And what I mean by that is, when you look at names and details, a lot of these extra things we've already looked at in the change details. This is just a little quicker way of being able to get to these places. You'll have a lot of those options that way here when you go to like changing instructors or adding additional details to your program. One thing that is really nice about ActiveNET, you can attach PDFs or documents to a program if there's like a syllabus or any kind of just if there's like supply lists or things like that that need to go along with that program. You can add those as well by attaching those files to that program, which is very nice. But again, you'll have the financial information where you can change the fees, you can set your pricing for that. Again, we have that all in here as well. And again, you can go in here and set the fee for your program. And why I'm highlighting this is it's important to note that when you do have when you do have an actual program here on this page, you can actually change the fee by a template. Now, what's really cool about it is that in the financial charges section, we have set up a bunch of templates, and these charges can be used throughout of ActiveNET. And when you see that at the top of the screen, when it says charge name activity fee, and what I mean by that, when we go back in here to the actual part of, let me go back into this here, you've got change fees. So here's that activity fee that we were looking at. When we click on that, activity fee is part of that the charges template, which is housed in here in the financial section of the navigation menu. And why that's important? Well, you can then see that you can actually select the fee, and then you can basically override that by putting that in your program. And the reason you know that is that you look at the top menu, and it still says Guitar Basics, and you're changing the fee. So whatever you set in here will stay with that program, but you do have a template that is already set up for you inside the program. So it's really, you're not having to reinvent the wheel every time by setting up all of those programs. And you can take certain of the, if you have a set of charges you want to use on every program, this is a possibility you may want to think about, is putting a template together and then incorporating those into your program settings where you'll have a bunch of different prices showing up. Again, it has the activity, so when you charge name, then you can do those from a template, and you can create that all the way through. So again, charges are also equal to a price template, so keep that in mind. You then have, again, we broke that down again, where the charge name, you can make sure that you can change it to whatever name you want, or you can leave it as an activity fee. You don't have to put any name to it. Also, make sure it says general public, because all of our folks we're going to be basically trying to do a program with us are going to be listed as a general public. That's what they'll show in the database. So you make sure that says general public so everybody can enroll in that program. Now you have a description here that we've seen before. You don't necessarily have to put a description there, because this is the fee part of it. So it's really just going to be the fee and that's it. You're not going to really see a whole lot of description. It's more kind of an internal note. Or if you decide to have it online, then you may want to have maybe something there too. But if you're not doing anything online, you don't really have to worry about that. So again, you'll see that if it is the only fee that you're dealing with, But one thing you do want to make sure of is that that primary fee checkbox is checked off. Because then if you don't have it checked off, you then will have multiple fees and you'll have to select something. Again, if it's the only fee, then you'll be able to just automatically put that charge there. If it doesn't have it, if that's not checked, then you'll have to check it at the time of when you're registering the folks for that class. GL accounts, we're all pretty familiar with GL accounts. Just remember though, make sure to check that out when you are putting your program again, make sure it's in the right connection as far as where revenue is going to be going. You can have that drop-down list of all the revenue accounts in ActiveNET for all of the locations. Make sure that you select the right one for that class. And then you have your charges. Now, this is where the fees for those programs will go, and you can just put your price right inside there. And then we have the part about instructor fee overrides. Now, you can, if you do have a specific instructor and a specific amount that they're going to get paid, you can put that information in here in this section. And just remember, we are in the fee section now, so you can now get a bunch of, you can put whatever, multiple instructors and how much they're going to get paid, that can be put in here. If you're wanting to split fees, you can also put split fees in here. You can drop down the menu and pick what GL account, and if there's a percentage you want to have go into, say, special events, and another going into fitness, you could break those up by, 50-50 or 70-30, however you want to. Those options are there by program. And don't have to worry about the tax stuff because we're not adding the taxes and stuff on there. And then you have the charge prefilled conditions. Again, this part here, when you're dealing with teams and stuff, you can always override whatever's in there, or you can choose to never override it and have something automatically come up every time. But again, if you have, for instance, like a race, we talk about, like the Sneak a Peek, for instance, if you wanted to do a registration for that and you had set up some different conditions that people have to register, well, this is where that would come into play. You could set those in here in the pre-filled part for the conditions of a team. And then your online settings, again, come into here. I know we've seen that a lot through this process of going through when it comes to setting up your program. But again, that's also when it comes to the activity, you can put online questions. And then if there's a code that you need to have set for a program, you can put that in there. Then we also have abilities to give multi-person. If there's a multiple person registration, we can add how many people, minimum and maximum can be there. And if you really want to get nitty-gritty, with as far as if you need a specific season or a specific term that this program's going to be, if you decide you really need to limit your registration, well, this is your place to come right here. This is where you can get more in depth with that program. Most likely they're not going to need to do that, but if you do, this is, again, you have more details here. And then you have qualifications. So if when you do, like for instance, when we talked about like Sneak a Peek, if you're doing a team registration, what does that constitute? How many minimum members do you have to have a team? How many maximum? You can set those fees, all of those restrictions there. The qualification on ages, if you have a minimum age for this program or a maximum, that's where that can be set. And then we talked about those alternative keys. Now again, you can do an alternative key type here, or you can do a different status. Again, if you want to get nitty-gritty, you can. These are here for that specific program if you choose to do so. And then you got the fee change schedule. Now, this is also real nice when it comes to looking. If you've had a program that has had one certain charge for a long time, and then in the next season you want to, if you have a date that you want to go up on the prices or even go down, it doesn't matter, whatever charge you want to do, you can choose an effective date on this by selecting the date on here and put the amount with, as of that date, that charge is going to automatically go up or go down for that program. So that's also real nice. You can set an actual price increase or decrease from there. So those are also really nice. Again, you can have also dates as far as when to activate this program. If you have an official start date, you can also, in order to take it offline too, you can also put an expiration date too. So you have the ability to keep it on or keep it off, or to make it, or in this case, open or tentative or closing it out. Those kind of things. This is where that would be in play. You then also have the action side. Now, actions are also important because when you get there, you can then, we talked about that wait list. And the wait list part, you can go in here and identify the different things as far as what you want your wait list to do. And when I get in here, I look back and I get onto the wait list side. I'm going to come back here and get back out of this and back to functions. So we have the wait list. Now, because we don't have a wait list right now, we don't have a full amount of people in that program, there's not going to be a wait list. However, whenever you do have a full program and you get a bunch of people on the wait list, the wait list and stuff will show up in here, and you will be able to basically check them out from here if you wanted to. So it'll keep a running tab, and if you do that, you can basically check them out and add them to a program if there's a spot that's open. So you have that you have that hard part about maintaining that. And then what's also some pretty cool stuff, we also have a few little stat type stuff that we have in here for the programs. You can also do the show roster, which then again, you can put a first and last name and as of what date, if you can search to see if that person's in the program. And again, you can show all rosters as well for any of them that were involved. So you can do roster checks on that. And then this is really nice. You have totals. You can see the history of the program. You can see how many, what's the minimum enrollment that you have, kind of all your specifics that you've set up. You can now see the breakdown of all that right here. So again, if you have a wait list, it'll show how many are on the wait list. You can also, again, you can see the residents, non-resident based on their profile that they set up originally in the system. Again, if it's broken up by, non-Grand Prairie versus Grand Prairie, then you can see that all there. And then what we remember from before, you basically had the folks that were enrolled, how many were left, and how many remain. As far as how full is the class. And if you do have openings, a lot of those will show up at the bottom here of this totals. So you have some nice little things you can check on real quickly. We mentioned before also on the actions, when we set up a template for these particular programs, if you like the settings of this particular program, you can actually copy every bit of this to a new program. And what it does is when you do copy it, it's going to show you at the top that you have a copy of, in this case, the Epic Guitar Basics. And you have basically everything here that was there before, but you can now rewrite it and add a whole nother program that is like another section or just another date offered. You can have that. So you can copy programs as well. Now you do remember too, you can also cancel any of these at any time if you need to go back. So that cancel button is always at the bottom if you need to return and you messed up on something. That's okay too. So again, that's what you'll see on a lot of those things there too. One of the last things I definitely wanted to share too is you'll see at the beginning, at the top when you come into this, you'll have a link up here at the top with the view info. Now that's also kind of nice because you can then see that, and what I'm talking about is right here in this top box. The view info gives you an internet perspective that's internal. It's not real. It's not showing online or anything, but it gives you a perspective of what it would look like on the public side. And if I did that, I could show you kind of an idea of what it looks like. And you see right here, this just gives you kind of an idea. And right now we've learned too that you probably noticed in the back area of ActiveNET, it's a real bad logo that doesn't have any kind of, you can't get the white out. Well, because of that, this logo and the logo on the back end are the same file. So you can't separate the files. That's one thing we've learned. So right now, I think this is the more important one because it's going to be on the front page, and it looks really good. So those two files are tied together, but you can see how the program's going to look, when you're on the public side. You kind of gives you a breakdown. Again, it's an activity, so it's going to show in blue here. In every program that you see, you may have seen this in the back area. Each of them have a different code number. So if you needed a reference in the system and try to find a program that needed a code number, every one of the programs has a generated number for this. And then your specifics on here of what categories and if there are going to be restrictions on the programs, it gives you that option too. And then it will show you, for the public enrollment online when that's going to be. So again, you can see how all that comes into play, and then their instructor and then there's kind of a summary of all of the different, what categories and stuff they're in. But you can always look at that at any time if you do go on there and see, you know, what it will look like online once you've set all of that stuff up. So again, just knowing that view info, you can click that link on any program and give yourself a more of a public perspective on that. So wrapping up today, we searched an activity, and we also were able to go in and edit the activity with the different parameters. Now, again, we looked at the activity list, and when we got in there again, we looked at it by the one. Let me go back. We looked in here. We had to change the details. We went through that process, went through the wizard, and we went down. We saw the different dates. We're able to we could go in and change instructors. I mentioned before too about the extra details. You could go in here and add a file if you wanted to for a particular program. Especially if they have email addresses and you want to send it out, this would also be able to be attached to an email to go out as well from the system. So again, you can put in PDFs or Word documents for a particular program. And then we also have, we can add prerequisites in there. So again, you can get very specific if you want to with a program. So those things kind of break down as well. Again, they're kind of smaller segments of that change details link of the full wizard. You can kind of go specifically to these, and they all tie in together. And then we looked at the fees, and again, you can go in here and select the fee. And again, the activity fee is one of those preset templates. So you can override it at any time. If you clicked on this, you could then, it shows activity fee, but then you can change this to however customized you want. If you just want to say fitness program fee or something, or if you don't want activity, you could. So all of these things are very, they're customizable. You can change them. Again, making sure your GL accounts are correctly put in. If you wanted to have them where they're discounted, you could. You could put those parameters in, the instructors. And then if you do these fee splits between GL accounts, you could do so here. And then your team conditions, if you're doing a team type event, you can put those in here. Multi-person, again, specifics when it comes to more restrictive registration type of parameters. All of those things are very important. The multi-activities, how many minimum or maximum team members you have, those are all important. And then, again, if you wanted to trade up the fees or lower the fees on a certain program and you want to set a certain date you want to do that, that's where this would come into play. They're at the bottom of the fee structure, and you could put that charge amount right there. And if you know, like every year you want to go up, you can actually add additional dates too going along the way. And then there's your activation dates and expiration. If you wanted to go forward and you want to close out a program and not offer it again, you can put an expiration date after the final time it's done. So again, those are a lot of those features are shown right there in the functions. And again, the main thing we were looking at though, we looked at all the financial and main details, and then you had your wait list. Again, you can pretty much go from the wait list into a particular for the program. If it's full, you can actually register from there and put them in a program that somebody has withdrawn. So you can, based on the order of who came in, you can add them into the program from there. And then you have some stat kind of reports with the show rosters, show your totals. You can do a lot of those right here from the program if you wanted to. And you can also do those again from reports too. Again, just based on the different things that are offered. So again, multiple ways to get around. You have those different options. But again, in the end, we kind of broke those three things down. And again, the functions have those three options where the name and details, the financial, and actions. Again, when you look at ActiveNET, you remember even when we look back at those reporting things last week, you saw that you had the filters, you had the options, and then you had how you could sort that data. Very similar to this. We just have a different section here. And again, these three areas are kind of how the maintenance part of it is put together. So you have a lot of those options for you. Okay, we are now at the end, and again, I apologize for the little technical glitch. Hopefully we got everything back online. It wasn't too long, luckily. But again, at the end, if you have any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Again, on Thursday, we're going to look at how we can do how the communication side of it actually works.